Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Kansas City jazz saxophonist Matt Otto on his new 2020 CD, Alliance. We talked in early November 2020, and this is a project that features 7 original compositions that are dedications to important American activists and jazz musicians. We talked about this, the new world of no live jazz during this global pandemic, and quite a bit in between. Enjoy.
Well, hey, thanks for taking a minute out. It's quite a strange time on planet Earth, huh?
Oh, my Lord, it's insane.
Oh, my God. I mean, as if, like one thing here and there is something, but this whole thing is, it's, man. And a part of me thinks, as an artist, this has to be, like, the time where ideas just start flying.
I mean, as you know, for most of the artists, there's no financial support at all now, so it's really difficult. I mean, I'm lucky to have my KU job, but without that, I would be really struggling, honestly.
That's the thing that I've realized with all of the interviews and everything that I've done. I realized that, there was always kind of this thing where, musicians always used to talk about, well, this was kind of my side gig. I mean, it provided a lot of bread for people, but it was like the side gig was kind of education and the focus was music. And that's kind of flipped around on its ear now because of what's going on in the world. And thank God academia is there for you musicians.
Yeah, I wish everyone had a good teaching gig. Few people in town here are just living off their instrument. It's like definitely, less work. And then the work you do is, you're taking a little bit of a risk to kind of put yourself out there. So, man, it's a really complicated situation.
It certainly is. And the one thing that's very refreshing coming from this side of things here, from the microphone, just kind of observing jazz from afar, it's so nice to see that musicians are still putting out music. It's great to have the mailbox full of CDs still. It's like things are still going, creativity still happening, and you have a new CD, Alliance, which is probably pretty apropos, that term right there for what we're living through right now. Talk to me a little bit about, I want to kind of break this release down, and I want to start off with the fact that it's coming out during a pandemic. What are your thoughts on that?
A couple things. I mean, I wanted to, as you had kind of alluded to, just kind of keep putting music out. Music kind of reflects things that are happening in culture, and even though it's not lyric music, I feel I still have kind of an emotional attachment to the music, and so it's like I'm trying to make a statement even though it's just sound. Sometimes you have to use your liner notes for that, but I definitely feel like it's a reflection of the times, and then also maybe a critique of the limits of the times. And so I was trying to kind of put something out that would be appropriate for what we're all kind of dealing with.
What was the artistic approach with this album? Obviously there's going to be emotions. When did you actually record it?
So it was recorded in different stages. I had recorded most of the tracks earlier a few years back, and then it had sat, I was waiting for kind of inspiration to finish it. And part of the long hours alone during the pandemic and no work is like kind of being able to reflect and be like, hey, I think this is a good time to finish this project. I added another recording date early in January this last year before we got put in lockdown, not knowing, of course, that was going to happen. And so I added that to the track. There was a few tracks I wasn't happy with, so I excluded them from the album, so I needed a little bit more material. And then I started asking people to kind of guest appear on the album. So, I sent just over the internet, sent the tracks around to some people to add, Peter plays on it. Herman put tracks down. He's living in France now. But, because of the internet, there's a lot of possibility there. So people, the bulk of the tracks were recorded live in the studio here. And then I added a bunch of people in post-production during the pandemic, so it turned out nice in that sense. There's like 5 different guitar players on it, and Mike Stover plays pedal steel on a track. So I just had a bunch of my favorite players kind of join in on something.
That's the thing that I get out of this, is that it's kind of like comfort food. There's a lot of comfort going on. There's a lot of instrumentation. It's very rich sound. So my question is, for those out there that decide to download and buy and consume this, what do you want them to feel after they're done with this? What do you want the overall feeling to be?
of my albums, it's a subtle album. It's not really flashy. There are tunes that heard bulks of them in my mind, and so they're just kind of, it's almost like a self-reflection in the pieces. So I think that I find that the album isn't going to be super flashy. It's more it's subtle. The melodies should be fairly. I write usually pretty lyric-based melodies that I can sing, because I sing a lot when I'm writing, and so they're kind of lyrical melodies that should be pretty easy to pick up on. And I think the subtle framing harmonically of the melodies will have kind of a lingering effect. If it might take a few listenings to get to have the harmony be clear. But yeah, I guess I'd want people just to give it a listen and enjoy it for on their own terms. I don't really have any preconceptions of how other people should receive it.
I remember a few years ago, Dave Scott came into town, and we were all at the Black Dolphin. It was over winter break, and you were on stage. And there's been some transformative moments that I've been fortunate enough to experience in live shows. I don't know that I ever experienced anything like that when you started playing. When you started playing, something in the room changed. Like there was a magic, there was a magnetism. Everybody stopped. I think even people that were walking with drinks stopped. Like it was the last frame of a very intense bowling match, and everybody's like, we're all in this. And my question
was that with the Steve Cardenas gig?
Yes. Yeah,
that was a fun night. Playing with Steve I think part of the reason is playing with Steve, because he kind of such a super deep musician, and he kind of raises the bandstand. Just playing with him makes you play better,
Yeah. Well, and I could tell, and there was just a lot of love in the room. It was Christmas break. There was just a lot of things going on. But I think about those moments that as someone that's, just in the audience, I think about that. And it has to be different for the musician. During this absence of live music, are there any moments like that you think about that kind of fuel you, that get you thinking, okay, we're going to get through this and we're going to be back up there and we're going to create more memories like this?
It's hard to say. I mean, I can't predict the future. I mean, I'm hoping for the best. So I am practicing every day. I get a lot out of connecting with my instrument. So like trying to sing melodies through my instrument slowly. And so I get a lot of kind of value out of just playing the music, listening to the music, and doing the things that jazz musicians do, like transcribing. I transcribed some Louis Armstrong yesterday, some Charlie Parker this morning, working on some Bird tunes today. Like, I just love working on the music. It's so complex and gratifying. So I kind of just try to stay in that frame of mind, like working, living the music, and then just hoping for the best. And then, trying to keep myself educated and understand what's going on and do what I can to help, in whatever capacity.
Yeah, and in this, recovery, revival, I'd like to call this the revival, when we all start coming back and everything kind of starts getting back to some semblance of regularity. What do you hope both musician and audience realizes about this time away from live music?
Oh, well, I hope that, the appreciation gets greater. I think people don't realize how, I don't know, maybe a lot of people do, such as yourself, just like listen to jazz and enjoy it and appreciate it. I would hope that even for any kind of live music, people would have a higher appreciation. I'm of the belief that it's like the highest human achievement, is music. Just because, music implies like all this other things have been dealt with, like, your needs have been met, you've eaten, you have shelter, and now you can spend extra time being an artist and working on music. It's a really kind of a far reach for humanity to get to this kind of very nuanced art form, which is purely human and, has no real, like, it's not like growing crops. It has no actual, like, it's not productive in that sense. So it's a very kind of, it's very human. From cave paintings to like modern jazz is a huge leap. And I feel like it's one of the most important things we've done culturally is produce, this art of improvising sound, improvising music.
I agree. That's a great answer. It's a triumphant way to wrap everything up. Matt, thanks for talking about Alliance. Thanks for talking about this surreal world. I think we're all waiting for David Lynch to walk down past our house and yell, cut.
Totally.
Live.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in New York, L.A., Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Matt for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.